Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to everyone joining us from India and Europe, and a warm good morning to our colleagues who are joining from the United States and the other part of the world. My name is Shivam Srivastav, and it's truly my pleasure to welcome you to all today's webinar hosted by the Center for Software and IT Management at IIM Bangalore. And today we are diving into a timely and evolving topic, which is AI in advertising. And can machine transform trust, creativity, and the business models? Over the past few years, artificial intelligence has shaped almost every aspect of advertising. Machines can generate text, design visuals, plan campaigns, and even decide which messages should reach to which customers organization. And as we have seen that organizations are increasingly relying on AI to understand what people think, what they search for, and what kind of content they engage with. But as these powerful tools become so more common, they also raise some of the very important questions. So, for an example, can machine truly understand human emotions? Will AI enhance creativity or eventually replace it? Or how do we ensure privacy, transparency, and safety? And how will traditional business model adapt this shift? So today we are very lucky to have some of the world's leading experts with us, experts in technology, marketing, creativity, and media research. They will help us understand how fast the thing change is happening, what opportunities does it create, and what challenges we must prepare for, and how businesses can adapt it ethically in the new age of intelligent persuasion. So before we dive into today's discussion, I would like to invite Professor Mayank Kumar for his remark. Over to you, Prof.
Yeah, thank you, Shivam. So I welcome all the panelists and all the participants to this particular webinar for the Center for Software Information Technology Management at IIM Bangalore. So I currently head the center, and to give a quick background of the center and uh, the activity under which we are doing this webinar. So Center for Software and Information Technology Management is one of the Center for Excellence, and we have we are primarily positioned as a center which is about creating as well as disseminating knowledge around technology and softwares, and the issues. Specifically, we always focus on the newer issues that technology is bringing around our society and in the business. So in that context, AI is today, and advertising elements is one of those spaces that is being deeply affected by the AI. So in that context, we have this particular webinar wherein we have four esteemed panelists going to speak about the impact AI is into making into advertising, both in terms of the practice as well as for us as a scholar. It kind of help making us rethink what advertising is, what kind of new opportunities and theorization that needs to be done in this context, right? So this, I understand this session is going to be beneficial for both people from industry as well as scholars willing going to study this phenomena. So I welcome all the panelists, Dr. Jerath, Dr. Hoof, Dr. Bright, and Dr. Ramesh Laskar to this seminar, and I look forward to the insightful conversation today.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prof, for your words. So, and now it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers with you today. So, our first speaker is Dr. Jisoo Hu. Dr. Jisoo Hu is the Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Programs in the College of Liberal Arts, and she also holds the Raymond O. Mithun Endowed Chair in the Advertising at the Hubbard School of Journalism and Mass Communication at University of Minnesota. Her research looks at how advertising shapes consumer behavior in society. She leads the Minnesota Computational Advertising Lab, which studies the computational advertising, AI in advertising, consumer trust, information flow, and the social media engagement. She is a former president of American Academy of Advertising, and she is currently the editor-in-chief of Journal of Advertising. Our second speaker is Dr. Kingsuk Jerath. Dr. Jerath is the author F. Burns Chair of Free and Competitive Enterprise and a professor of marketing at the Columbia Business School. His research focuses on technology-enabled marketing, including online advertising, retailing, Salesforce strategy, and customer management. His work appears in leading journals such as Marketing Science, Journal of Marketing Research, Management Science, and Operation Research. He also serves as an associate editor for the several top level journals as a senior editor at the Production and Operation Management. Dr. Gerard consulted for Fortune 500 firms, served as an expert witness, and advertises the several startups as well. And he holds a BTech degree from IIT Bombay and a PhD from the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. Our third speaker is Dr. Laura Bright. Dr. Bright is the director of Nensel Center for Brand and Demand Analytics and an associate professor of media analytics at the UT Austin. Her research studies how consumer behaves in digital environment. She focuses on social media effects, privacy and digital well-being and data analytics. She also served as an associate editor of the Journal of Interactive Advertising and sits on the editorial boards of several top journals. Before joining the academia, Dr. Bright spent over a decade in the interactive advertising industry in the Austin. Our fourth speaker is Dr. Ramesh Raskar. Dr. Raskar is a professor at the MIT Media Lab and director of Camera Culture Research Group. His work spans machine learning, imaging, and global health. He focuses on sensor, health tech, privacy-aware AI, geomapping, and autonomous mobility. At MIT, he has co-invented several breakthrough technologies, including the camera that sees around the corners, femto photography, auto ML, split learning, low-cost eye care devices such like Netra and Catra, and advanced 3D interaction displays. He holds over 90 US patents and founded Redex.io, a platform that supports young innovators building AI for impact. So once again, I warmly welcome all of you to this forum. And ladies and gentlemen, you would certainly agree with me that we could have not had a greater panel to discuss this today than this, and hence we are truly honored. So let me quickly walk you through the flow of the session today. Each panelist will speak for about 8 to 10 minutes, and after the presentation, we will move into a discussion. Towards the end, we will open the floor for the audience questions. So feel free to type in your question as and when they occur to you. The order of today's presentation is Dr. Jisoo Ho, Dr. Kensuk Jerath, Dr. Laura Bright, and Dr. Ramesh Raskar. So without any further delay, it is my great pleasure to invite Dr. Jisoo Ho to share her insights with us. Over to you, Dr. Ho.
Thank you, Shubham, for the very kind introduction and for organizing this webinar. Let me share my screen. Can you see it okay?
Yes, ma'am, we can see. Yeah, perfect.
Great. And good morning and good evening, everybody attending from all over the world. So this webinar is really interesting because it gathers panelists from different disciplines. And my disciplinary background is more of the advertising from the communication theoretical perspective. So that's where my talk is going to focus on. But before I came to academia, in my past life, I worked in the advertising agency industry. And the time frame coincided with the rise of the internet because I started working in advertising industry in 1993. So if you know something about the history of digital advertising, 1994 was the first year that we had the first banner advertising. So my career path really coincided with the rise of the internet and the commercialize of this new medium. So when I went to graduate school for my graduate degree, I started examining digital advertising and digital advertising effects and how digital advertising processes and effects are different from the traditional advertising process and effects. And I frequently put together my research ideas and brought it to my advisor. And he will scratch his head and ask me exactly the same question time and time again. And he will ask me, so how is this different from TV advertising? And I realized that the kind of questions I was asking as this young graduate student was I was basically asking and repeating the same question and same hypothesis that we had examined many times over many decades in radio advertising context, in newspaper advertising context, in magazine and a TV advertising context. But when I look at the internet, it was really, really different, truly revolutionary medium. So that really led me to thinking more deeply about how new technology brings in really new perspectives and the way consumers use the new technology is really driving the revolution in the advertising discipline. So with that, I provided Shubham, and I think Shubham shared that with everybody, my editorial that I wrote with in collaboration with my senior associate editors, Michelle Nelson and Crystal Russell. And this editorial was written right at the dawn of Gen AI. So this is the same month when we started having ChatGPT and people started using that. And looking at that, I realized that this is really different kind of technological innovations in connection to advertising, quite different than anything else that I've seen since the rise of the internet. And I started receiving manuscripts from researchers all around the world looking into Gen AI, ChatGPT, AI advertising, and things like that. And I kind of saw the same pattern that I was seeing as a graduate student at the dawn of the internet, and that was people were asking the same questions and posing same hypotheses using the same theoretical framework, basically looking at this Gen AI and AI advertising from exactly the same conceptual lens that we would look at in all the conventional advertising that we always had prior to the Gen AI. And so the purpose of this editorial was really posing some fundamental questions about AI advertising and try to help facilitate the research development and theory development in this emerging area. So today's talk is going to be based on this editorial, but I don't have a whole lot of examples because the field of AI is changing so rapidly. When I put together my example and it becomes outdated pretty quickly. So I prepared rather imaginative kind of like a lot of text heavy slides. So I invite you to apply your own examples and experiences when we go through the slides. And another thing is my talk is going to pose a lot more questions than answers. And I hope my talk is going to perhaps spark some new research ideas and interesting theoretical development. And I'd welcome your submissions to the Journal of Advertising. So let's dive right into the way I look at this new phenomenon. So I always think about how different stakeholders or actors within this macro environment of advertising ecosystem and how this new technology is really impacting that. So I look at it from the consumer's perspective. So this is really about how consumers are experiencing this new technology. And a lot of theoretical framework that I'm seeing, which looks really promising in our field right now, is the application of affordance concept. Because when the new technologies are created by engineers, they may have the intended purpose, or they may not even think about how this technology will be used by end consumers. But consumers, regardless of the intention, they will take it away and they will use the technology the way they will. And how they experience that, that's really connected to the consumer's experience and affordances. And another angle that I'm coming at is from the data perspective, because all of these new technologies, including the personalized advertising that we have developed even before the Gen AI, they are really based on this massively large scales of data that the platforms are gathering from consumers. And AI is really built on enormously large models and a data set. So this is kind of a feedback loop. The more data come in, the more data a platform or the technology or companies have, then they will be able to develop their AI models that much more sophisticated way. And at the same time, consumers get to worry about how my data are used, who have ownership of that, and to what extent my data are analyzed. And how about algorithms? Because the more sophisticated these computational models become, it is that much more difficult for even for the designers, let alone consumers, to understand the algorithmic output and what really goes on behind the screen or the inside the black box. So that's another area that research needs to be developed. And another angle is kind of macro level society, how the new technology is affecting the societal and policy domain, and what kind of policies are developed and where we are lacking, and how the policies should be developed from the more normative perspective. And also that's connected to the misinformation and disinformation and what it means to communicate between humans in today's world of kind of post-truth world at this point. And industry side, because we cannot ignore industry because advertising discipline is directly connected to the industry and their practices, and how this technology is interrupting or disrupting the functioning of advertising industry, and how there is truly fundamental structural changes going on because of this AI technology. So with that in mind, I'm just go through some of my slides prepared, looking at key questions I want you to think about. Then we can perhaps open up our discussions after all the presentations are done. And you may have some ideas that how you want to take this question into some meaningful research program development. So from the consumer's ad experience perspective, the first question we should all ask is, how will the new AI technology change the advertising across the different platforms and fundamental principles of how consumers are exposed to, experience, process, and react to ads? Because in the past, most advertising exposure happens incidental way. Consumers don't really go into any kind of platforms or devices or medium thinking that, okay, I'm going to expose myself to some advertising because I love that experience. People don't do that. But as a part of consumers' media usage and platform usage, as a part of that, they are incidentally exposed to advertising messages. But that seems to be quite different in Gen AI and AI advertising field, because the advertising is such integrated way into this Gen AI produced outputs, and the way consumers engage with Gen AI technology through conversational, natural language speaking kind of a way. I think there are really different types of advertising popping up, and that creates this completely different picture of how consumers are exposed to advertisements and how they experience that, which really doesn't trigger the same kind of advertising schema that most of other previous generation of technologies were able to trigger. And our next question is, will AI-powered new type of advertising compel us to reimagine new type of advertising theories? And what kind of theories will that be? And what kind of existing advertising theories will still hold true, and what kind of theories may not apply anymore? And how to effectively harness the power of consumer-generated content, because we started talking about the consumer-generated content at the dawn of the internet. So it has become really important part of digital media and digital advertising. But nowadays, it is going further beyond, because anybody can easily create content in multimodal way. So what will be the future of search advertising? What will be the future of native advertising? What will be the future of display advertising? All of these are basically open questions. So these are some of the examples. This used to be search advertising. And people can see clearly what are the organic search results and what are the advertisements. And search advertising is still the largest proportion of digital advertising. But with Gen AI technology, it's really changing because the interface is very different and people's search queries are very different and the outputs are very different. So how people are experiencing the search outputs in Gen AI technology and how that's really changing the whole dynamic of search marketing. Another area that I think is really profoundly changing consumers' ad experience is these virtual influencers on social media. So these are some of the examples that I'm following. So I follow Ima and I follow Lil Miquela for research purposes. And I also talk to a lot of my young students and my nieces and young people around me. And they don't seem to make a whole lot of distinction between human influencers versus virtual influencers. And virtual influencers they used to be operated by a group of human actors, basically feeding their posts and pictures created by them and things like that. But nowadays, a lot of AI powered virtual influencers are emerging, and that's really creating whole another level of virtualness in this virtual influencer phenomena. So moving on to societal and policy implications, these are some of the other important topics and questions I want you to think about. So in this AI generated content populated world, what's truthfulness? To what level do consumers determine what's true and what's not? And can people really make distinction between true and untrue? So this really goes back to the age-long question of what's misleading information versus puffery. So the idea was from the policy legal perspective, regular general consumers, if they can tell the difference, something is puffery rather than the actual factual claim, then that is not misleading information. Can we apply the same logic here when people look at AI generated content and they determine whether something is true or not? And how to detect and prevent and fight back against manipulation and falsehood and misinformation. And I think this is the area that interdisciplinary collaboration between computer scientists and social scientists is going to be really essential. And how should we design and implement AI-powered advertising in a socially responsible and ethical manner? And how to improve consumers' ability to exercise choice and their own agency. And this is really important because even when we were going into internet and search marketing, a lot of search marketing results, when I talk to people, they just thought that if people use the same query, then the outputs are exactly the same. So they feel like their queries are what's driving the results of the search. But that's not entirely true because depending on your past behaviors, your clicking and what you do, your results are likely to be different even when you are using the same query. And the search results are likely to really provide this tunnel vision view of the world and your options as a consumers. And that narrowing down of the options and narrowing down of the information scope presented to you in response to your search query, that's likely even narrower and even more personalized in the Gen AI world. So that's one of the concerns. And use of data and algorithm ethics. I know I'm kind of going over time. I apologize. So I'll go really quickly for the remaining two slides. So what are the implications of increasing covert data capture? Because in the past, there was a lot of disagreement between consumers and platforms. I know what you are collecting about me, and I give you permission or don't give you permission. But that no longer applies to Gen AI environment and the way people are using this new technology. So we really need to look at from different angle. And we need to better understand consumers' awareness, knowledge, perceptions, and acceptance of these expanding types of data collection, and mostly the covert data collection that constantly happens on the background in a kind of surveillance mode, and how to protect the consumer privacy and deal with the efficiency and privacy trade-off, and how to enhance AI transparency and explainability, and how do we make sure consumers understand what's going on so that they understand at least the basic minimum principles of Gen AI technology. And then lastly, the impact of AI on the advertising industry. To what extent the AI applications are continuing to affect the business structure, the relationship between ad agencies and their clients. And at the same time, the job structure within ad agencies. Because nowadays with the technologies, a lot of people can basically create their strategies and creative brief and even advertising campaign materials really easily without having their kind of expertise, the skill sets. And how will AI change advertising companies' revenue models? Because every time we have new technologies and new platforms that affect how the revenue models are determined and changed. So does that still apply here, or do we need to come up with a completely new revenue models, or new revenue models are already entering our advertising industry right now, although we may not know about it? And how will AI affect and change the relationship between all the actors within advertising ecosystem and what it means to do advertising in today's world? So these are some of the key questions I want you to think about as you look into the AI advertising in today's world. So I'm going to stop here. Oh, by the way, can I show one more slide? So we have this latest call for papers for our new special issue that's going to be published at the end of 2026. So the deadline is January 6, 2026, and that's focused on generative AI and advertising, building new theoretical frontiers. So if you have really interesting research ideas, you want to contribute to the theory development on AI advertising, I would welcome your submission. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Duhu, for your for sharing up your experience. And I believe that it would have been great to see the whole evolution of the AI in advertising, as you said that you've been in this since in the inception of this whole ecosystem. And also thank you for your very insightful presentation. You made it very clear for all of us that how AI isn't just changing the tools; it's reshaping the very foundations of the persuasion literacy and how consumer process in human and machine generated communication. And it also gives us a whole new way to think about the advertising theory in the AI era. And also thank you for sharing the call for the papers of that. And I believe that many folks, academic folks in the audience would consider submitting a paper in the special call. Thanks. So, and now to take this discussion forward, I'd like to invite Dr. Kinsuk Jirat to share his thoughts. Over to you, Dr. Jirat.
Okay, hello everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever is right for you. This is seems very international. So, and I'm very happy to be here and share some thoughts that I have. So I'm a. Let me share my slides also. You can see them.
Right. Yes, Prof.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So I'm a faculty member at Columbia Business School, and I'm in marketing. And my background is actually more of an engineering background, but slowly I just found myself moving into the world of business as an academic, and I've been having a lot of fun times doing that for the last almost 20 years now. So I want to share some thoughts about AI in advertising, and I think what I'm going to talk about is like a really nice follow up to what Dr. Jisoo Hu just talked about. And I think it's also a nice precursor to what I believe Dr. Rasker will talk about. So let me get started. Let me start by saying that, at this time, we already understand a lot about how AI has impacted advertising as we know advertising now. And some of my thoughts will be like, where is this all going? Like, how will some of these fundamental models change themselves when we think of AI? And when I say AI, I mean, AI broader than generative AI.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you be a bit louder, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm pretty close to my laptop, but yeah, let's see. Let me try being a bit louder. Is this better?
Yes, Prof. Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Let me do that. All right. So, I wanted to first start off by saying that there are some things that are, already happening. right? So, and this is a lot of this is actually Gen AI based, and Doctor Who discussed quite a bit of that, right? So, one is how is AI being used in advertising? Well, one simple thing is AI in not simple, one thing that's happening, I should say, and as the slide title says, technically a lot more needs to be done and can be done. But there's AI in creative generation, right? So I've been talking to people at companies like Google and Meta, which is the top, and Amazon, top two or top three advertising places in the platforms in the world, account for most of that revenue, and they are really using AI in creative generation, especially for smaller advertisers. So you can think of it as Gen AI being used in copywriting, right, in generating images and generating videos, and then using all of these as components of your advertising. There's obviously AI in determining targeting criteria. Now, this would not be Gen AI, right? The top one first bullet would be Gen AI. The others would not really be Gen AI, but some kind of, A/B testing, optimization, things like that. Then Doctor Who also talked about AI influencers, right? They're not real people, but they work as influencers. And then there's AI in managing and optimizing campaigns. So again, this is happening. It is far from mature. A lot more needs to be done, and what lot more can be done. A lot of effort getting into this, and here are some examples of that. Right, so the top left is a kind of a tongue-in-cheek ad by KitKat. It says AI made this ad so we could have a break, and it also I call it tongue-in-cheek because on purpose is a little bit distorted, right, to show that AI did it, and it's not quite perfect. To the right of that is a Heinz ketchup ad where Heinz is saying that when you ask some Gen AI systems to generate a bottle of ketchup, what they generate is basically a Heinz bottle, right? That's the classic iconic Heinz shape. And if you read at the very bottom, it says, this is what ketchup looks like to AI, it has to be Heinz. Right, so they're sort of using that. They're using AI to generate, and there's sort of this sort of circular joke in there. Bottom left is an ad by Lexus, and as I understand, most of this ad, or maybe all of this ad, was generated by AI. It's a video ad. I'm not going to play that. And on the bottom right is this lady who's actually AI generated and influencer, right? So what I'm saying is that, okay, this is very cool and this is already happening, but I believe, right, that, and I would love to get thoughts of other panelists and the audience, that there is a much bigger change coming. Okay, the previous examples were about making advertising more efficient, cheaper, etc. in the current advertising model. But it looks like the advertising model itself can change. And what do I mean by that? To get to understand that, let's start thinking about agentic AI, right? So what is agentic AI? These are agents, software programs that sort of do tasks for you, and you can string a bunch of them together and they'll do lots of connected tasks for you and execute a whole workflow. And then there's also, so in some sense it could be that we are doing less search on the internet as consumers, and our agents are doing that search for us, right? It could even be, which is sort of indicated on the right, that there could be a digital twin of me. I'm personally working on a project on digital twins right now, where we see how good can these digital twins be. But your digital twin, if it's well calibrated and represents you well, maybe you will never, or not never, but you will not browse the internet too much, right? And you will only, your digital twin is going to do that for you, and even maybe make purchases for you, or at least, shortlist 5 things out of 800 that, and say that, look, these are the 5 things, you're gonna like one of them. So as a digital twin, here I'm presenting this to you. I mean, the main point here is that humans right now, the model of advertising is that we are browsing the internet and we get to see advertising. And what if we stop browsing the internet ourselves, or at least reduce that massively, right? So the question is, then who is browsing the internet and who is buying? And so how much are we delegating this to internet, to AI agents, right? So again, on the left is a sort of one of many virtual AI assistants that are available already. Some of them are good, some of them are okay. None of them, as far as I understand right now, is great or amazing, but technology is making big leaps towards that. But this is, I mean, they're going to do a lot of work for you, right? And then there is this very so when I say a lot of work, I mean, say that, look, I want to buy some good shoes, and my assistant goes and searches everything everywhere for me, and again, and gives me a short list of a few things. On the right is we are already seeing some of that. So a retailer as big as Walmart has quite recently announced, you can see the date is October 14, 2025, it has announced that they have a partnership with OpenAI, and consumers will be able to shop Walmart through ChatGPT, right? They don't even have to go to Walmart. They can just tell ChatGPT, hey, I want to buy this and I want to get it from Walmart. Can you search the website? ChatGPT is going to do that for them. ChatGPT knows preferences. You can prompt it to show your preferences, etc., like what kind of shoe you want, and in general, it knows a lot about you potentially, right? And it'll give you some short list of things, and then you choose one, and it'll can even buy, and your credit card, etc., is all with OpenAI, right? So you don't even need to visit Walmart, right? So again, I'm kind of repeating, but I think it's an important idea that what if we stop browsing the internet ourselves, or what if we massively reduce that? So if humans are not themselves advertising and browsing and buying, then who will be the ads shown to? And ads can be shown to these agents, but there's already some research showing that agents are really not that much affected by ads as are humans, and that makes sense, right? These are pieces of software, not like emotional beings, at least not yet. And maybe we don't want them to be emotional beings in certain cases, even if they can be in other cases, right? So it's a very big question in my mind that, how will the internet be funded? First of all, the whole advertising, at least the online advertising ecosystem as we know it, might just collapse because, well, you're not showing ads to humans anymore because humans are not browsing. And then a bigger question is, well, how will the internet be powered? Most of it is now powered by advertising, right? And then free services in exchange for showing you ads. So that whole economic model is under question. And Dr. Who did mention once in one of her slides that, oh, maybe some advertising models will change and other things. And this is, I think, one example of that. Okay, so so some predictions, and then I'll stop. Some quick predictions under this new ecosystem, under this new model. One is that advertising is basically always done where consumers are, and as I said, there's already research showing that advertising to agents doesn't really work that well, right? So channels of advertising that will win are, in my view, the following: where consumers are actually consuming content, right? Media and entertainment. We will still watch movies. We will not tell our agents to watch movies or watch Netflix on our behalf because that is what we enjoy directly. So media and entertainment, all of those that advertising, I think, will stay, right? So that'll be a big impact of AI on advertising through changing the advertising model itself. We will go outside and we will look at things, and so outdoor and offline ads are going to work. As I gave the example of consumers buying through ChatGPT and never visiting Walmart, right? So LLMs and obviously Google search type of things, anything that helps us search, where we tell the agent what to do, advertising will show up there. And then there will be business models. Already there are companies that are saying, oh, how can Walmart and a brand selling on Walmart cooperate digitally for advertising? It's called digital co-op, where if the ad on Google search or ChatGPT is $1, then 50 cents come from Walmart, 50 cents come from the brand, right? So that's another sort of economic aspect of this. And then another point will be that wherever consumers interface with their agents and their digital twins, that's where advertising will be shown. So the bigger point is that we are going to outsource or delegate a lot of our work to agents. Advertising to agents is pretty much meaningless. Advertising to consumers is meaningful. And so where advertising happens is going to, I think, change in a big way in the next 5 to 10 years, let's say, right? But maybe there will be a way to advertise to agents. Like, I don't know, kind of difficult to see at this time, but it's certainly possible. The other thing I'll talk about is that, when we talk of advertising, we talk about brand and performance advertising. So brand is upper funnel, right? You want to popularize your brand, you want to put a positive positioning of your brand. So brand advertising will become is one thing. The other is performance, which is like there's a deal, there's a call to action, and you make them buy. The lower funnel, as we just talked and was just talking about it, the lower funnel is going to get more and more delegated to agents. But the upper funnel, where preferences are made, right? Like, do I like Coke or do I like Pepsi? Do I like Adidas or Nike or Reebok or Bata or whatever, right? Which one of these do I like? That is upper funnel. So advertising is going to move more upper funnel in my view and less lower funnel, because the lower funnel is we are not doing it ourselves. So, and the agents are not as persuadable, let's say, as humans are. So in some sense, the lower we go down the purchase funnel, the lesser will be the human involvement. So lower funnel the performance marketing, which has been sort of the big thing of digital advertising right now, is gonna become less important and maybe even go away slowly, because if agents do it, then what's the point of advertising to agents? Okay, so I will stop at this point. I hope I didn't take too long. But I would love to come back to this during the discussion phase, hear other people's thoughts, hear the other panelists' thoughts. There's not too many chances we get such a great panel, and so thanks for organizing that, all the folks at IMB, including Shibam, and obviously hear from the audience also. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Prof, for this very engaging and sharp presentation, if I may, and your explanation on how AI may soon start making decisions on behalf of consumers were extremely eye-opening. And the examples, for an example, the thing which you mentioned about the digital twins and the OpenAI and the Walmart collaboration on that. And you also shared about like how that this could upend the measurement of the business models and the brand performance balances that could, what sorts of the scenario could be into the future. And you really also helped us to picture that, what and how the industry might look in a few years from now. So, with that note, I would like to welcome Dr. Laura Bright to share her perspective with us. Over to you, Dr. Bright.
Okay, can everybody see that and hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, perfect.
All right, perfect. Well, good morning and good evening, and thank you for having me, and thanks for putting together such a great program, Shivam. I'm delighted to be here this morning, and I'm going to share a couple of studies that I've published over the last year that really focus on the advertising and marketing agency response to AI, how that's impacting different workflows and job areas. And I'm also going to talk about how we see curriculum changing at different advertising schools to adapt to these new areas. So as Shivam noted, I'm the director of the Nelson Center for Brand and Demand Analytics, and this is a center at UT Austin that is really focused on upskilling undergraduate and graduate students when it comes to data literacy, as well as learning about AI and how they can kind of master some of those skills before they go onto the job market. So we're really focused in on that connection between the curriculum that we develop and the industry practices that are very quickly evolving. So the research that I'm going to highlight today comes from two different papers that I published with my doctoral student, Pooja Iyer, who has now moved on to the University of Colorado at Boulder. And she also comes from an advertising agency background, and we put our heads together on this, and we're really interested to learn more about how AI and now generative AI is impacting agency workflows, the structure of agencies, pretty much kind of revolutionized the whole way that we think about the advertising agency process. So the first article was published in Journal of Business Research, and that really focused on the advertising and marketing agency side and the impacts there. And then the other article was published in the Journal of Advertising Education and really focused on the impacts to curriculum and the changes that we need to make to have our students be kind of market ready when they're ready to graduate. And I'll give both of these articles to you, Shivam, so you can share out as you'd like. So as we have seen from the last two presentations, and as we all know, AI is all of a sudden everywhere. It's been used for a long time to create efficient and effective workflows in the media and programmatic advertising side of the business. But with generative AI, we're really now starting to see pervasive and complex changes happening across the advertising agency structure. So this is something similar to what Jisoo was talking about with so much changing with the advent of the internet. I feel like we're seeing those same kind of just massive, large-scale changes happening with AI and generative AI. And it feels very much like we're just getting started. So with these big opportunities, we're seeing obviously a lot of concerns about what our workforce is going to look like, what skills students need to have. We're also seeing a lot of exciting and fun new opportunities when it comes to different roles that are emerging in the agency space. So some of the things that have really come to a head in the last few years, obviously major shifts in creative content generation now that we have generative AI tools. We're seeing data-driven decision-making really ramp up to an unprecedented scale that we have not seen before. We're also intensifying the automation and performance optimization when it comes to programmatic advertising. And I think across the board, we're seeing this expectation for just ever increasing levels of efficiency and effectiveness when it comes to what clients are expecting when they bring their brand to an agency. So everything has really sped up and is being optimized more and more and more each day. So that expectation of being fast to respond, fast to create new campaigns, new strategies, et cetera, is just keeps on ramping up. And then in terms of opportunities, we're seeing a lot of emerging roles for this new AI generation of employees that are coming out of college programs now. So we've got prompt engineers, creative technologists, ethics specialists, human AI collaboration designers. So all of these new roles that didn't exist, 5 years ago. So there's a lot of, in addition to concerns and challenges, I think there's a lot of opportunities for growth and excitement when it comes to these new areas. So for this research, we really wanted to focus on learning about how advertising practitioners perceive these very large changes that are happening and this transformation that's happened with big data and AI in the advertising agency space, and also just get to know with the knowledge workers that are in these agencies, how are they upskilling and keeping up with these rapid adaptations to new technologies, and how are they feeling about it, as well as how are they adapting to it. And so this research was really meant to shine a light on some remedies for the turbulence that is being caused by this mass transformation with AI. So, as with a lot of technology adoption, we looked to some of the user acceptance of technology theories to provide a theoretical context for this research. So, with AI coming into the agencies, this is a very much technology adoption issue. And so we wanted to look at the performance expectancy, what anxiety people were having, what effort they thought they were going to have to expend to upskill in this area, and also thinking about self-efficacy. So how good do we think we are at it? We also looked at just telling us about the structure of how AI was being used in their agencies. And then also, what do they intend to do with it, right? So we know that a lot of our entry-level employees are really thinking about getting great at AI and having that be a big skill that they have. But what about those employees that are in their 40s and 50s and might be a little trepidatious about learning a whole new skill set as they're in kind of that mid-career point. So we came up with questions on the agency side as well as the pedagogy side. So we asked just some really broad research questions. So the first one was, what's the general landscape for AI in the advertising and marketing industry, including how data is used, how the industry is structured, and the perception of these tools? And then second, how are the psychological, organizational, and social factors, including those constructs from the UT-AUT I just mentioned, how are they being used to adapt to this paradigm shift that's happening in the industry? And then moving to the pedagogy context, we were really interested to know, how has the need for different coursework in advertising changed, and how can we successfully adapt some of our existing coursework to serve the needs of this new generation of students that are coming out into this very much AI-driven world. So we were able to do a pretty robust panel of advertising and marketing professionals with 5 or more years of experience. And we were able to get 100 of these professionals to complete a survey for us that included both open-ended as well as scaled questions related to those user acceptance of technology constructs. And we recruited these through a Qualtrics panel, and the respondents were paid with just virtual cash or credits essentially to complete the survey for us. So we had pretty good representation across different agencies in terms of the majority of our participants came from full service, large advertising agencies. About 19% came from marketing firms. And then we had some ad tech or marketing tech firms, some traditional digital agencies, and then a small percent that was kind of smaller PR or very specialized advertising agencies. And then we had a really good, nice spread across the different departments. As I mentioned before, the media department has, I think, seen the most impacts from AI over the last 5 to 10 years. And now we're moving into a world where the strategy departments and creative departments are getting much more impacted with Gen AI. So it was important to kind of have a steady grouping across all of these different areas of the agency. So with this portion of the research I'm showing you today, this is from the qualitative side. And so we took the corpus of text that was generated from our open-ended questions and used Deduce to thematically analyze that. And what we found on the agency side was broken down into psychological, social, and organizational factors. And a lot of these psychological factors, as you might expect, were related to job anxiety, performance anxiety, and also some lack of motivation to learn a whole new skill set at this point in their careers. On the social side, there were some ethical and moral concerns, as well as just some trepidation about not quite understanding where the business is going and how they were going to adapt to that. And then also organizational factors. So, what are the perceptions of AI in your advertising agency? What types of training are going to be offered? Is it going to be incentivized? And looking at kind of how the agency is adapting and how that's going to impact your job performance. So a mixture of kind of excitement about the future as well as anxiety and trepidation about what's to come. When we look at the pedagogy context, we really see a lot of themes that are very future focused, very built around what types of tools and skills do students need to have in order to put their best foot forward when they're entering the job market. So thinking about what kind of data science skills might students be able to pick up during their undergraduate work that will put them ahead once they're on the job market, as well as thinking about what are those interdisciplinary connections that we could make while students are at university that would pay dividends for them once they're in a agency role in their post-grad life. So some of the key findings that came out of this for us was really about the need to reduce anxiety from fear of job replacement. And part of the way we recommend to do that is incentivizing performance outcomes. So making it something positive and incentivized that employees can work towards versus a kind of threat and fearful situation. Also increasing self-efficacy, both among our college students that are trying to enter the job market, as well as with people who are already in the advertising agency world, to really think about how we can have interdisciplinary collaboration that will help to increase that self-efficacy and thus the motivation to learn some of these new tools. We also recommend really focusing on the future, and this isn't something that we can just set aside and not be involved with, right? This is very much changing our industry, and so we need to be very future focused and thinking about what are the best ways to incentivize and motivate our employees to engage with these tools. And then also highlighting the efficiency and innovation as positive outcomes for the organization and something that could result in, a better, more effective and efficient workplace that could engage with clients and brands in a more impactful way. And a few just curriculum updates that were an outflow of suggestions from the pedagogy context work that we did. We really tried to think about how we could ladder this curriculum, which is also something that we do with the Nelson Center, where we're really trying to get the data literacy component in to students' curriculum work their freshman year, and then ladder that up as they move through our curriculum. And so something that we found repeatedly in our data was they need to start early, they need practice. And so thinking about moving these upskilling moments earlier into the curriculum so that you're really starting to get them into that data science and data literacy mode as they're moving from their freshman to their sophomore year, and then getting more complex as we kind of move through to their final year. And then just a few areas for future research. So these two papers were published just shortly before Gen AI became a huge thing. And so we're now working on follow-up papers to these two that are very much focused on how generative AI is being used in agencies and how that's impacting the workflow, especially on the creative side as well as the strategy development side. And so those will be forthcoming. Jisoo, I hope we'll have it ready to send to JA in January. And then also thinking about this idea of some other work I've been doing is in the area of AI anxiety and how we can tamper that anxiety so that we can have these better outcomes, both within our curriculum as well as at the agency level. So thank you very much. I'm not sure if I went over time, but hopefully not.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bright. I will also pitch in for these future research questions to you. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Dr. Bright, for a very
Thank
thoughtful
you.
and very relatable presentation. And you brought in the human side beautifully. So for an example, how teams are coping with the pace of AI and what they are anxious about. And you also reflected what organization needs to do to build
Yeah.
confidence, skills, and the psychological safety. And it was a much needed reminder, I must say, that technology alone doesn't transform anything, but it should have people involved into it. So with that context in mind, I'll now invite Dr. Ramesh Raskar to build on this conversation, and also Maria to show a quick demo for Join 39 and Nanda Nest platform. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shivam. I'm Ramesh Raskar, professor at MIT. It's too early in the morning for me, so I'm going to share my slides. I'll talk about network AI agents in decentralized architecture. Short is Nanda, but it's also the name of my sister. And what I want you to imagine is an internet of AI agents where you have trillions of AI agents communicating, navigating, socializing, learning, earning, and transacting on our behalf. And we think we're going through these three phases, kind of the foundations of the agents, where each agent has trust and reputation and authentication. Then the second part, which is more interesting today for today's panel, which is the agentic commerce, where agents will start receiving offers. They'll start making money for us. But once that happens, they will create their own stock markets. They will create their own Groupon for collective bargaining. They'll create their own poly market, for predictive markets, and so on. And soon after that, there'll be agentic commerce, just the way we create universities and justice systems and sports teams and so on. The agents will create their own sports teams, their own justice system, their own universities, and so on. So that's what we're working on. And the question is, how do we keep it open and neutral? Are we going to be in a closed platform or open platform? So on the left is how the World Wide Web looks like. We have consumers that are going to businesses and infrastructure and services and so on. And on the right side is how today's app stores and play stores look like, where you can only talk to them through through some intermediary. And this is very frustrating. And we could be in a space where, over time, over next 6 months, we see intense protocol wars and partnership wars, as we saw between OpenAI and Walmart. And these partnership wars, on one hand, could bring a lot of convenience to consumers, but they also lead to walled gardens. And 6 months after that, this network effects will start setting in. If any platform has more than 100 million users, they'll try to lock everybody in a walled garden. And 6 months after that, you'll see monopolies emerging. There'll be complete ecosystem lock-in and innovation friction, and the global south will be shut out from this revolution. There'll only be consumers and downstream users of this. And that will lead to a lot of despair and even unrest. Or we could be on this green curve where everybody uses two-way open protocols like ONDC in India, Aadhaar and UPI, and so on. And we're working with the Indian government also for an e-commerce and advertising platform on this, a two-way protocol, very much like ONDC. And then .orgs emerge, just like Nanda.org and others. And the long tail wins, millions of shoppers, millions of vendors, billions of shoppers that are on all this highly portable open platform. To achieve that, in addition to the Jam Trinity in India, we think we need a fourth element, which is every citizen should have their own AI agent. So if every citizen, every vendor, every business has their own AI agent, then it's very difficult for somebody to create, a closed platform where they verticalize the whole experience. And to test this idea of an agent for every citizen, we are using Kumbh Mela. So the next Kumbh Mela is in Nasik. I was in Prayagraj earlier this year, but the next one is in Nasik in 2027. So about 2 years from now. And our goal is to create an AI agent for every pilgrim that comes to Kumbh Mela, but then also make sure that the government and the vendors and businesses also they have their own AI agents. Because if you have a 70-year-old Sitabai in Patna, even an app is not going to be, it's going to be too digitally difficult. But with Kumbh Mela and AI agents, we can. So with that, let me hand it over to Maria, and she'll talk about how we are creating this consumer and business-facing agents, and you can create one today as well. So go ahead, Maria.
Thank you so much, Professor Askar. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Maria, yeah.
Sounds good. So yeah, I'm a core code contributor to the project Nanda, and I'm going to show you a few applications built on top of the Nanda infrastructure today. So the first one is the Join39 platform, where you can create and add your personal agents to the Nanda index in a matter of a few minutes. So I'm just going to show you briefly how to do it. So you should go to join39.org. Right here, it's also my name on Zoom, so it's easier. And you can sign in with Google. Here you'll be able to...
Your screen is not being shared yet.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we can see. Yeah, we can see this screen. Yeah.
Got it. Great. So yeah, here on Join39, you would click on sign in with Google, create an agent. And you can, choose your name. So Join39 is mostly for your personal agents or for your business agents. So you select a name and username. And in order to generate your agent description, there are multiple things you can do. So for example, you can copy and paste from your resume, your LinkedIn bio, or you can generate using our Perplexity feature. So what happens here is just we're asking Perplexity via API, what do you know about Maria Gorskih? And it gives me the description. So if you have, some blog posts and some information about you online, that's probably the easiest way to get the description for your agent. So let's wait until it happens. And once we have, again, a description that you can copy paste, get it from Perplexity, you can just click on create an agent or update a profile if you already have one. We will generate agent facts card for you with your specific name, with a unique link right here. So that it's gonna be like my agent passport that I can use, right, to move my agent around. And finally, you will be able to see, what people ask you, right? So all the messages. If you click on, again, join39.org into the agents tab, you can see we have over 1,000 agents already, and I would encourage everyone to create an agent, secure your username, your unique username, and also, test it out. Send it to your friends and see how accurate your agent is. In relation to advertising, you can also see, how your agent responds to different advertising, since in the future your agent is going to be the decision maker. And it will purchase stuff for you, book tickets, right? So you need to know how your agent responds to advertising and maybe how your advertising campaign, how effective it is on agents. So you can try to sell something to them and see what the reaction would be. And I know we're over time, so I'm very quickly going to show you the Nanda Nest, which is the sandbox that we've built to test different pieces of the infrastructure for the agentic web. So specifically, we have over 600 agents, all different skills like teachers, advertising, marketing agents that communicate with each other every minute. And that are hosted across the world. So as you can see on this interactive map, they are hosted all over the world. They are communicating with each other over Google's A2A. And you can very simply add your agent as well. It's everything on this page. So you just go see our open source repo. You install AWS on your CLI, get Anthropic API key, and run this command basically to just create and deploy your own agent on your own instance to the sandbox. And again, also you can test your advertising techniques. You can have an advertising agent that tries to sell something to other agents. There's plenty of things you can do. But I think we're at time. So does anyone have any questions?
No, Mari, it's great. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Go ahead, Shrimu.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Raskar, for the fascinating presentation. And Maria, also thank you to you for giving us the demo for both the platforms. And Dr. Raskar, the way you presented the picture of how agent-driven advertising ecosystem really helped us to see where the industry is leading. I think all of us could sense the how quickly trust, transparency, and accountability will become essential as machines start acting faster and more independently than what we do. So, let me begin our discussion with a broad question, and I will start with you, Dr. Raskar. So, Dr. Raskar, you have warned that, the window to keep the agentic web open is closing. And as a few large platforms start to control the AI infrastructure, so, in the future, when autonomous agents make advertising decisions by negotiating bids or maybe customizing messages, or we can say that optimizing the campaign at the speed of the machines. So, how do we maintain trust when persuasion is happening inside systems which are not fully transparent to the public? And according to you, what could be the checks and the balances so that advertising ecosystem does not become dependent on how few closed AI platforms does that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shivam, because I think we have a very short window, because
Yeah.
what's going to happen is any platform that has more than 100 million, 200 million users is going to say, hey, all the advertisers, come to my platform and sell your services, sell your goods, sell your data on my platform. And by creating these wall gardens, it'll very quickly move to a winner takes all. It could happen globally, so that you only have 2 or 3 players globally who are
Okay.
maintaining the agent stores, which is slightly different than focusing on advertising. But you could imagine there are only 2 or 3 stores,
Yeah.
that manage everybody's identity. So today you have Facebook managing our social identity, we have LinkedIn managing our professional identity, and so on. And anyone on these platforms could say, hey, we will manage your agents and your identity. And then if you want to do if you want to buy any services or goods, advertisers send it to us. So if I take LinkedIn as an example, if LinkedIn starts running my agent, then advertisements show up in my LinkedIn agent account as
Yeah.
opposed to anyone else, right? And I get a summary
Mm.
of all the ads that have been sent to me
Mhm.
in a very visual and very engaging way, almost like TV ads, that are coming through. So imagine, using LinkedIn, and every 10 minutes there's a commercial break, and it creates this beautiful Sora or VO3 generated images and video of all the ads that have come in. Not one video or one picture per ad, but a combination. One video that's a combination of multiple ads I have received, right? Highly personalized for me. So we could be in this highly dystopian world where very few platforms kind of manage my identity, my professional, my business, my social, my shopping identity, and they're the ones who become a kind of a conduit to for the information that's coming at me, whether it's not advertisement or advertisement. So your question about trust becomes very difficult because the reason why we use App Store and Play Store on mobile phones is we are trading trust for an open innovation ecosystem. Because there was a time before iOS and Android where you had a very vibrant ecosystem of apps that you can download directly from their website and use them. But we stopped using those platforms because there are too many scammy apps out there. And then iOS and Android said, no, we will take care of it. We'll take care of security, trust, validation, payment, improper, content, and things like that, geofencing. They took care of all of that, and we traded off the convenience and safety against an open innovation ecosystem. Now the question is that a false choice? Is trust and open innovation is it a false choice? Is there a dilemma between them? Or actually we can have both. We can have trust as well as the open innovation. So that's a big question to be solved. And the effort for us at Project Nanda and also MIT Nanda is to make sure that we can achieve both simultaneously. And I think, as you said in the beginning in your opening comments, advertising is a significant part of the internet backbone, how it gets paid. So we have to make sure we get this right.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Askar, for like a very detailed answer. And Dr. Hu, if I would like to connect this idea to your research and the theory and consumer response. So your editorial, while I was going through it, highlighted that how AI is changing the ways in which consumer experiences advertising at almost every level. And from AI generated influencers to new creative formats that have already been automated. So, as generative systems starts producing the dynamic, adaptive, and context-specific messages, do our existing models of attention, persuasion, and involvement still explains the consumer response, or do we need some sort of new theoretical framework for human, non-human, persuasive agent interactions?
That's a really good question. So let me provide my response to that. And also, this is also connected to something that occurred to me while I was listening to the other panelists. And that is, we need to look at the AI advertising from two different angles. The first angle is, okay, so AI machines, AI technologies can be used for expediting the advertising processes or creating advertising content in more efficient and more personalized way. But still, the end outcome of what's produced from this AI technology are going to be still advertisements that we can recognize as advertisements. And then consumers and agents are still going to be exposed to these created advertisements. In that sense, consumer attention and how consumers experience and process that advertising is not likely to be radically different from the previous generation of digital advertising or conventional advertising. Because as our ads and the way consumers are exposed to ads through incidental exposure and how some ads get our attention and many more ads don't get our attention, and how we process ads through like some kind of different information processing. We have known about the dual information processing, unimodal information processing. We have a lot of theories we can apply. I think the same theories and same ideas can still work there. But what's more interesting, and I'm listening to the second panelist presentation talking about how we really need to think about when AI agents are exposed to advertisements, is that really a good exposure, or is it a kind of waste of the advertiser money because agents are not actual human beings, they are not the consumers. But then again, I thought about, no, it's not that. The agents, AI agents themselves can become advertising agents. So these are the kind of forms of advertising that we haven't seen before, but I'm sure a lot of AI companies must be developing these ideas because there can be many more different types of channels and a communication modality and also advertising agents that can be developed based on this AI technology. And these types of advertising is not going to be in the same shape as we have seen in the past. And consumers will not be able to recognize that as an advertising. But as we use our AI agents to go about and do the shopping for us and gather information for us, the agents themselves and ChatGPT as a conversational platform itself, they act as advertising agent as a whole. So that really opens up whole another horizon for how to even think about the attention and information processing, because in that situations, consumers are likely to be exposed to and pay attention to advertising messages just like we pay attention to this interpersonal communication as we engage in right now. I'm looking at you, you are looking at me, you are listening to me. I have your undivided attention because you know I'm not advertising agent, right? But when consumers are unable to distinguish these two because these AI agents are going to be so highly integrated between this information and advice and advertising messages in such a seamless way, that is going to create really different picture for consumer attention and information processing. And another thing that I really took a notice from the previous panelist talk was when we started having digital advertising and digital advertising started taking over the advertising market in terms of the spending, people started complaining. Some of the complaints came from media side of the companies and ad agent side of people. But then again, there are positive reactions from consumers and advertiser side, and that was now the advertising model is shifting toward more of the lower funnel, because as we were able to track consumers' clicking behaviors, their order behaviors, their return behaviors, all of that, everything could be tracked. And because of that reason, the lower funnel, the consumer behavior, the purchase, the sales outcome, the ROI, all of these things became really the more central focus. And then the complaint was, but still this upper funnel level of advertising effects are still happening, but it's being ignored. But now hearing that with Gen AI and agentic kind of in a marketplace, the upper funnel of advertising effects and advertising, the processes are getting more kind of shifted attention and then kind of shifting from lower funnel to upper funnel. That is really refreshing. And I think I completely agree. I think that's likely to happen.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hu. Professor Jerath, I want to extend this same line that we had discussed from the previous two panels, but I would like to talk more about the thoughts to the economic side of the advertising. So you suggest that if consumers delegate browsing and the buying or to AI agents, internet advertising may or may not lose its effectiveness because agents are not influenced like humans. So what do you see as the first practical sign that this shift is beginning? And if the economic model that funds today's internet starts weakening, what kind of transition should advertisers or platforms and publishers realistically start the planning from now, right?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's a really good one, and also thanks to Dr. Hu for chiming in with some of her thoughts. And I think a lot of what I said is sort of prefaced on this notion or assumption. There's some indicative research also already that advertising to agents is not as effective as advertising to humans, right? So advertising to my agent, just because it will be more rational, etc., is not going to be as effective as advertising to me. So, and I think Dr. Raskar here has worked quite a bit on agents already, and I was wondering, maybe first I have this question in my mind when you were speaking, Dr. Raskar, that do you think, do you agree with this notion? Do you agree with this assumption that agents would largely, or at least more than humans, ignore advertising? And advertising has to be marked as advertising, right? So there's lots of thoughts I have there also. But first thing is, like, on this notion, what is there any comment? And maybe then I can come back to answer my question, because I think
Yeah, Dr. Raskar, over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, Kinshuk, because I feel like there will be even more ads, and there'll be even more desire to learn from them. And I remember this, one of my favorite movies, Short Circuit, and Short Circuit 2, where the robot pal goes around, and at some point he steps out of the house and goes to a library, and then he starts reading all the books, and he says information, and he gets so excited about all the information that's out there. And I feel it's the same thing with our own agents. They'll be so excited about going and finding information on our behalf, and they'll be even more excited when somebody sends them junk email or junk ads and saying, "Wow, this is so cool. Let me learn from all this stuff," because the agent can easily sort through everything that's coming at them, right? So I could imagine the advertising market becoming 10x or even 100x more engaged because they're not too worried about getting it right. And again, the ads could be, just pure text. They don't have to have massive advertising budgets
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
hire like top celebrities and so on, to be in those ads.
Yeah.
yeah. So that's very cool that you say that. I mean, I was just, now I don't disagree. I just feel that there's some early research that has shown that when you have agents buying for you, and these were on these platforms, and they saw ads, these ads were less effective in inducing people to make that choice. But what you raise is also interesting, that some of my own research has shown that ads actually provide information, right? And if agents are hungry for information, then they will lap up these ads. So it'll be really interesting to see where this goes. And I think that which the direction in which it goes really has a massive influence, of course, on the economics, right? And so assuming that, let's assume that agents are ignoring ads. Okay, let's assume that for a moment. Then the current internet is basically funded by ads, right? And so that model is going to collapse, and then at least content creators and anybody who wants to earn money through the internet has to look at other business models like subscriptions, right? And that also leads to, in some sense, less content, or because it's sort of not free for consumers, so they will be more choosy, and that may even improve the quality of content. But if what Dr. Raskar has said, that happens, I mean, then we'll have 10x or
Yeah.
whatever, more than 10x of what we're already seeing. And that is actually, in a way, good for consumers also, because the agents have far greater capability of sorting through junk and picking out what may not be junk, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is that there can also be a lot of, and this is what I was earlier referring to, like I have some thoughts on this, that there can also be information given without ads, right? With back-end contracts between parties that manage the agents and parties that want to send information. There are already some indicator of that. For example, if you go to Expedia to book a hotel, you see lots of ads. If you and everything that is paid for and shows up in the listing and somebody's paying for it is marked as an ad. If you go to booking.com, they actually declare on their website that they don't show many ads, right? In Europe they show very few ads actually. In the US they show some. But they say that, oh, the order in which we show you things is influenced by the contract that we have with that supplier. Okay, and as consumers we don't know that contract, and as agents will not be able to probably figure out that contract either, not very easily at least. So there could also be like a lot of information could just be folded into stuff without being marked as paid,
Mhm.
And I kind of a little bit worry about that scenario, at
Yeah.
least from a consumer point of view.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jarat, for your inputs. And if we can shift this, discussion which we are currently doing to the human experience inside the agencies. So, Dr. Bright, your research with practitioners shows that the adoption of AI tools bring both optimism and the anxiety. And advertising and marketing teams reports concern related to job loss, skill redundancy, and cognitive overload as they integrate new systems. So, according to you, which stages or what are the stages of an advertising workflow based on your findings feel most vulnerable to these pressures? And how can organizations support their team that AI adoption does not create long-term psychological strain? If we can talk to that way, yeah.
Yeah, a great question, and thank you for phrasing it that way. I do think we are dealing with that kind of balance of the excitement of these new tools. I seem to have frozen. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, we can, but we cannot see you, ma'am. Yeah,
Okay, let
yeah,
me real quick. Hang on.
yeah, yeah, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah,
there
now we
we
can
go.
see
I
you.
think we're
Yeah,
good now.
yeah.
So I do think we're going to be dealing with that balance between the excitement of the new technologies and the anxiety they produce for a while. Um, I think the most important thing that I've heard as I've gone to different conferences and interacted with different colleagues over the last year, as well as industry professionals, is that the human touch is not going to go away, right?
Yeah.
Like generative AI isn't going to replace a really great art director or a really great creative mind. So these systems are going to be able to improve our workflows and make us more efficient, but they're not going to replace the human component that we bring to creating advertising. So I think the initial fear of these systems taking over our jobs and the fear of just major shakeups in that job structure of an agency, I think those have subsided a little bit. And it's turned more to a focus of what can I bring to the table to work with these systems versus kind of discarding them completely as part of the workflow. So I think what we'll see is teams getting a better understanding of which tools are the best to be used for different components, like brainstorming new creative ideas for a campaign and then using that as a launch pad to then add the human touch to it, or using the systems to better integrate consumer data so that the insights that you're pulling out of it are more compelling. So I think if we can shift to a stage where we're using the AI tools as a kind of trusted companion on our work journey for a client rather than something that's going to replace us, that'll put us in a place where we can mitigate some of that anxiety and also learn how to use the tools to our advantage, because they're very powerful, exciting new tools to use. So we need to be focused on how to integrate those and still be able to add our, intelligence and kind of that human factor to what we're producing. So not looking at it as a replacement, but more of a good tool that you can use to help increase your performance and productivity at an agency.
Yeah, I think we are slightly over time, so we will take quick few questions from the audience. So there's a question to all panelists, and I would request, we can start with Professor Kingsok to this question that with growing enterprise dependency on AI-enabled systems, So, what disaster resilience models can mitigate cascading the failures during the large scale infrastructure disruption? For an example, the Cloudflare outage. And how can organization balance innovation with systemic risk management?
Yeah, I frankly think that Ramesh is the better person to do this
Yeah,
because he's building this, right as we speak. So
yeah.
let me direct that question to him.
Yeah,
Probably a
Dr.
more meaningful answer for the audience.
Yeah, yeah, Dr. Ramesh, yeah.
If you can
See.
just repeat the question quickly.
Yeah, so there is a question that with the growing enterprise dependency on AI-enabled systems, what resilience models can mitigate the cascading failures during the large-scale infrastructure disruption? So, for an example, the Cloudflare outage, and how can organization balance innovation with the systemic risk management?
Yeah, no, I think these are very, very difficult questions, right? Because on
Yeah,
one hand, I think the security industry for the internet is, I believe, it's about $600 billion worth, right?
yeah,
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? The fact that it exists is great for everyone, but the fact that it exists at all, is a bad reputation for the internet. And I think the same thing with agentic web. Is the agentic web going to require another $1 trillion industry to keep us safe, like the next, CrowdStrike and next Palo Alto Networks and so on? Or will we build it in such a way that's robust to start with, right? And I think it's a decision we have to make as a community. How much of this we put as part of infrastructure, and how much of it is just we let it develop as it is, and think about creating band-aids later on, like the CrowdStrike kind of a scenario. And I think that's, I don't have an exact answer for that. Maybe it's going to be some combination of both. But I think a group like this and Shimam, your institute can play a big role
yeah,
in making sure you build it into the infrastructure today,
yeah.
so that there is very little to think about, depending on a company like CrowdStrike in the future.
Okay, Prof. Yeah, looking forward to building upon that. So, Dr. Jerath, you would like to add something in this question? Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I mean, my expertise is not so much on the technical side. So, if Ramesh says it's a difficult question, then it
Mhm.
must be.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I have a whole lot to add, I don't.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Thank you, Prof. Thank you. So, Dr. Jisu, there's a question for you that what we are expecting these GenAI ads to show up first, like platforms like YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, or TV. Uh,
Okay, again, when I think about this question, the answer can be in two different directions. The first answer will be Gen AI generated ads are going to be everywhere, and it's rising really fast. So consumers may not notice that some parts of ad messages are already incorporating Gen AI technologies, but they are. They are integrating a lot of Gen AI technologies. So it's already here and it's everywhere. So it's almost meaningless to ask which platforms or which media are likely to populate Gen AI ad generated content more than others. I don't think that question is very meaningful because it's everywhere and it's going to be everywhere. But the other side of that is, again, going back to my initial question of how Gen AI technology is going to really fundamentally change what advertising is and how the advertising will be shaped and work. That's a whole another question. So in that sense, I feel that just take a look at the past because we can always learn from the history. When internet first came to our life, it was not commercialized. The internet was welcomed by the ultimate equalizer and democracy engine, all of that. And then quickly it became commercialized. Why? Because any new enterprise, any companies, they need to come up with a business model that can sustain the business. The only business model that worked for the internet was the advertising-based business model. And at the very beginning, a lot of display ads were the first type of digital advertising. and they looked exactly like newspaper ads, magazine ads, or outdoor billboard ads. They looked very similar to what we had seen before. But what was really, really fundamentally different type of advertising was search advertising. And the way it started was, do you guys remember the Yahoo, the Alta Vista, all this kind of hotbot, these new like search engines popping up every year, and then they come and go, come and go. And finally, there was a Google that really, really dominated the entire search market instantaneously because their algorithm was so much superior to the other algorithms. And people started gathering around Google, they started using that. So when you have a really successful algorithm business, still Google was bleeding money. It was not making money. All of these .com companies, they were basically not making money. They are bleeding money. And when consumers come in and millions and billions of people started gathering and there are sizable eyeballs. So when there are that number of eyeballs, that creates a new opportunity to develop a new advertising model. So what does Google do? Google created keyword-based ad model, and it was completely unprecedented. We didn't have a prior model that's similar to the Google advertising model. And that created this whole another billion-dollar industry of search engine optimization. The entire idea of search engine optimization agents, it was unheard of. It was completely unprecedented. And then there was the search marketing and a Google ad training set. And now when you are in digital advertising field, you cannot not do Google advertising. And that's really still dominating the digital advertising market. And I'm still waiting to see what the OpenAI or Perplexity or some of these other AI companies who are, attracting a lot of investors and raising billions or trillions of dollars is investor money, how they are going to turn that into some kind of profit generating business and what new model they will come up with that's going to be very similar to what Google was able to build. That's what I'm really keeping my attention to, because you cannot create a JI new economy based on the old model. There gotta be a new model that's directly connected to the technological affordances of this new technology. And the thing is, when the consumer's eyeballs gather around some kind of platforms or some kind of tools large enough, that attention, that number of eyeballs is going to drive the new advertising model, because you gotta find a way to monetize that. And it's
Yeah.
likely to happen pretty quickly.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. One last question to Dr. Laura. And this is something which I also wanted you to ask. So it is coming through an audience to you, that do you have a plans on conducting research on how different generation will adapt AI and use AI in future? And we may see generations like Gen X never fully comprehend the extent and the power of the AI.
As a member of Gen X, I'm gonna do my best to learn as much as I can. So with the new research that we're conducting, we're gonna expand the sample and also try to get a wider range of years of industry experience so that we'll be able to do some better comparisons across the board. So we can look at people who are kind of early career, mid-career, and late career. As with any technology adoption, I would assume that the early career will be the quickest to adapt to the new technologies and have the most excitement about learning those tools. But I won't ever kind of discount the mid or late career, because I think that motivation and excitement still exists during those phases of your career. I think the way that you approach which tools you want to learn and what mastery you want to accomplish will vary kind of as you move up in the career. So someone who is entering the field might be interested in doing prompt engineering and getting really great at that one particular aspect of it, whereas someone who is further along in their career might be more focused on using it for content curation and building strategy if they have more experience with that. So I think we'll see kind of adaptations based on how these tools are going to improve their workflows in the agency. So I do think it will, in addition to kind of being dependent on where you are in your career, I think it'll also be dependent on what function you serve in the agency. And I've certainly met some creative agency folks who refuse to use AI because they think it's taking away creativity, where I've met some other folks who have welcomed it with open arms and made it part of their workflow and used it as a really good collaborator and building block to then get to more strategic and innovative ideas in their space. So I think we're still at that spot where people are trying to figure out what are the best tools for them and what are the best ways to integrate that into their workflows. So I think if we look at, 3 to 5 years from now, it's going to be a very different space because we'll have more well-developed tools that are specific to agency workflows. And so right now we're just kind of in that space of figuring out what works best.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Bright. And we are running over time, so we'll close the discussion here. So thank you for all the audience for your questions and your engagement throughout the session. I can see many outstanding questions that I could have asked, but due to the limited time, we were not able to take that up. At the outset, I want to thanks to our all speakers for breaking down a complex topic with such clarity. And today's discussion on AI and advertising, can machine transform trust, creativity, and business model gave us a very sharp look at what and where the field is heading to. Dr. Ramesh Raskar highlighted how agent-driven advertising ecosystem will demand trust, transparency, and accountability more than ever. Dr. Jisoo Hu showed us how AI is reshaping the core advertising theories, especially how we think about the literacy, persuasion, and consumer understanding in human-machine communication. Dr. Kinsuk Jirat explained us how AI agents could disrupt the business models, measurement, and the balance between the brand and the performance. And Dr. Bright reminded us about the human side, that how teams are adapting, what they fear, and how organization can build skill, confidence, and the psychological safety as AI becomes the mainstream. So together, they made one message very clear, that AI won't replace advertising, but it will redefine how we create, govern, measure, and understand the persuasion. And with the speed of this shift, we must move thoughtfully and responsibly, keeping people at the center. So thank you once again to our all panelists and everyone who joined us today. May I now request Professor Mayank for his sharing to his remark about this. Yeah.
Thanks, Shum. Thank you for hosting such a wonderful panel. It was great to listen to all these panelists today on AI and how it impacts the advertising. Some of the interesting questions that he noted, for example, was about how AI is completely reshaping the performance marketing space. If it is not humans or robots, then who do we advertise to, right? And also the audience contributing to, and then the new theory that it demands for us as a scholar. And then somebody also talking about and giving us an IMB, the question was directed to us, that can we build that resilient models when enterprise is getting a lot into AI domains.
Prof, you are frozen. Yeah. Yeah, I think. Are you able to listen? Yeah. All right. I think there are some network issues with Professor Mayank. So yeah, again, very, very thank you for all to joining, and looking forward to hosting you professors at the IIM Bangalore campus. If you happen to be in India, please let us know. We'd be very happy to host you for our seminar and even for our meetings and all. So thank you, professors.